Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline, and my today's guest is Katherine Lazaruk. And I hope I pronounced, oh my goodness, I pronounced your name right. You know what? I trained the last 24 hours to pronounce it. No, it's not that difficult. Thank you for saying yes. I'm so happy that we can talk today. How are you doing?
I am doing well. It's like the weather started to turn here in Vancouver, so now we're getting these kind of cozy rainy days, and yeah, we're going to the full moon, big full moon today. So lots of good energy. Yeah, feeling good. How are you today?
Oh, I already had an encounter with full moon. I have to tell you about that
Yes.
because I saw it last night, let's say. And then I had a podcast interview
Okay.
this morning. You know, I'm 6 hours ahead from you, I think.
Yeah.
And then I had a podcast interview, and she was in Canada as well.
Oh.
And she had the full moon in her background, and this was so exciting. I don't know, it was 6 a.m. in the morning. So thank you for asking. I love full moon vibes.
Mm-hmm.
This is our interview also about. So I would like to introduce you to the audience, of course. First, you are a professional presence expert who help leaders and teams enhance their communication, leadership, and image. Passionate about achieving gender parity, you work with women and their allies to accelerate women into senior leadership roles. You hold certifications in image consulting and coaching, and you release your book Executive Being, Humanizing Business One Leader at a Time in late fall 2024. So
Mhm.
welcome again to the Inspired Podcast, Katherine Lazaruk.
Thank you. Actually, the book's out. They surprised me. The deadline was like it was quicker, so it's out. So now I guess we're not going to do a lunch party. We'll do a review party at some point. So if your listeners connect with us, they'll get a note about the review party that we'll do at some point.
I love that. Your book is out. Congratulations. It's always a great moment to celebrate. And of course, we can look this up and have a look and we can discuss your book. Okay, my first question to you is, how did your passion for achieving gender parity shape your approach to coaching and consulting?
Excellent question.
Mhm.
I really got fired up about like, you know what? Sometimes you don't really realize the water that you're swimming in as a woman. And as I got into coaching more and more business leaders, and as I was in business environments myself, I'm like, this is bullshit. Like the way that you're running this thing is not very human. You're back-to-back meetings. You're promoting people who talk a good game but don't do any work. You're not actually looking for the people in the background who are doing the work and who are a little bit quiet about it. Like there's not this sense of, there's not a sensitivity in leadership. It's a little bit too interested in the bottom line, which I'm fully for the bottom line in business. However, there's more than one way to get a healthy bottom line. And so what I was seeing was men being favored over women. Like it's only just recently that now there are more women CEOs than CEOs named John. Like that's a recent statistic. And so when I'm coaching, I mainly work with women and I talk to women about embracing that more relaxed, you could say archetypally, the archetype of femininity a little bit more fully. And when I work with my men, there are not very many men who work with me because only the very brave ones come and work with me if they're men. And they're willing to look at their feelings. They're willing to look at their emotions. They're willing to bring that into the world with them, because my belief is you cannot be wholly present anywhere if you are not whole. And when I think about women going into leadership, I think women are more uniquely socialized or equipped to deal with this new leadership paradigm that we find ourselves in. Because before, leadership used to be hierarchical, authoritative, and compartmentalized. So what happened at home stayed at home. What happened at work stayed at work. If I'm the boss, you listen to me. I can rely on my position to make people do things. There's a lot of fear in that model. And now the world has gone a little bit upside down, and it's now the model is integrated relational, and whole, meaning that people need to bring all of themselves to the table. They need to build relationships, real relationships with the people across the table. And they need to be doing their own internal work so that they're not reacting badly to situations, that they're not being driven by feelings from the past, that they're actually in the room with the people, seeing who the other people are across the table, looking for the common ground, and then working together to achieve the goals. And women just have a little bit of a leg up in this particular system. So the men that I work with that are old white guys, poor guys, they're having a hard time because everything that worked before isn't working now. And they're really struggling. And now I'm starting to see some women who have had a harder time in that compartmentalized model really, really stepping up and really doing a lot of emotional work in the workplace and creating these spaces that feel good, that people want to be in, that they feel like they make a difference. And that might be a long roundabout answer to say, basically, I see something unequal. I would like it to be more equal because I think, well, and the data shows that we do much better as businesses when we have a balance of men and women in leadership. When we have a balance of different voices at the table, companies perform significantly better.
Oh, yes, I see your point, and I love what you said, and you explained it to us so beautifully. Okay, it's about being or becoming more authentic.
Yeah.
Is this the word? Yes. And then being true to yourself, being honest to yourself first, then you can deliver this as well. And then you talked about equality. So I see your point. And when you talked about presence and the holistic approach is that we always contain both of the energies, the feminine and the masculine.
Absolutely. And for the non-binary folks listening or the folks that identify on the spectrum, it's a balance for everybody. And all of those energies are useful. Like if we think of an archetypal masculine energy that's very structured, we need structure. We do well with structure. If you think about like parenting a child, kids do really well when they have structure, and we're kind of just big kids a lot of the time. So adults do well with structure and ritual and routine too. We do well with predictability as humans. And when things are unpredictable, the more a leader can stay grounded in themselves, help their team co-regulate and stay grounded as well, the more responsive energy they have access to, right? Your emotional range of resonance is higher, and you can sense into a situation and keep your feet on the ground and move forward using your whole body, not just your head, because your head has very limited energy. Like what they're starting to show now with the mind body, like the gut brain connection and the mind body stuff, is that most of the messages come from our body and go to our brain, not the other way around. So if people can be in their body and access all of that sensation, they have a fuller range of information to make decisions with.
Wow, so exciting what you said. So no more hiding as well. When you talked about those leadership roles, these are roles, so they are assigned to you, but you are not a true leader, and a true leader doesn't need I know you didn't say this, but between the line, and they don't need this is what I understood. They don't need someone telling them what to do or where to be. They just are the leader, right? And they have both or everything integrated. They did the inner work, and I love, and you are the coach for that. You said, that's great. Okay, my next question, because I have another question. What key elements of professional presence do you believe are most important for leaders today?
I have 3 that I work with in terms of key elements. The first piece is what we were just speaking about, is core. My belief is that who you are at 4 is who you are at 104. The essence of who you are, the container that you came here to the planet with, all of that is the perfect container and the perfect essence to do what you're meant to do on the planet. The sooner you make friends with your core and get aligned, the easier your life is going to roll. It's very difficult to know what you want and get to where you want to go if you don't really know who you are. So that's the first thing, is the core. The second character core, right? It's like who you are. Then the second piece of that is congruence. So is your external presentation, is the way that you show up, congruent with who you really are? People have good BS meters. They know if you're hiding. They know if you're showing up in this kind of masked leadership. I need to be this kind of leader, right? They know when you're showing up like that. They know when you're not 100, like not everybody's energy is the same all the time. They know when you're not 100% on. So why try to pretend? Why? It's exhausting to wear that kind of mask all the time. Ridiculous. So, but is it congruent? Do you show up looking like who you are? So when people meet you, do they go, oh yeah, that makes sense? Because what that does is it helps people's minds be set at ease. And then they're comfortable with you because they see, oh yeah, this person's real. They're showing up as who they are. What they look like, what they're wearing makes sense with who they say they are. And is it congruent? And sometimes congruence has an aspect of your industry. So for example, if you're in a more traditional industry like finance or law, the requirements for your look are a little bit different than if you are in coaching, for example, or if you're a Reiki master, right? If you're a Reiki master and you show up to your appointment wearing a 3-piece suit, someone's going to be like, oh, this doesn't make sense with what I understand about this industry. And then that person has to spend a lot of time explaining who they are to the person instead of just showing up as who they are. So the first piece is core. The second piece is congruence. Does it make sense? And then the last piece is choice. Because if you know who you are and you know what people expect, there's the overlap there, but you get to decide how much do you want to conform? How much do you want to be really congruent? How much do you want to be a little bit incongruent? Like if in your industry, you are a person who likes to change the status quo, maybe you don't want to look like the status quo. Maybe you want to look like someone who makes change. Maybe you don't want to conform at all. I had a client one time who was in software, like in tech, and she loved to have her blonde, like her hair bleached really blonde. She loved to wear blue contacts. She loved to wear really flamboyant, like club wear clothes. This woman has a PhD. And she was having trouble because she wasn't fitting in with her master's, like it was a MBA program, was having a hard time making friends. And I'm like, yeah, because they don't know what to do with you. And they're young, like they just don't know what to do with you. So you can change and tone it down a bit and then make more friends. And she's like, no, I'm just going to go find an environment where they really appreciate me for who I am. And she loved the effect of having this image that was totally at odds with her smarts. And she's still remembered for that today. And people talk about her, but she's like, I know who I am. And she stayed true to that. So you get this choice, right? How much do you want to fit in or how much do you want to stand out? So core, know who you are at the heart. Congruence, does it make sense in the world? And then choice. How much do I want to play with all of those elements myself?
Wow. You knew that I would love that because C is Caroline, is my
Yep.
favorite letter. So you have those core congruence and what was it? Not Caroline, it was choice. And this is also in the name of my podcast. So we are totally aligned. And when you talked about masking, for example, then and earlier you talked about people on the spectrum or something. They are always masking, right? And when I imagine a world where we don't have to mask ourselves or play roles that we are not. So you talked about the person who is not forced, so to say, to explain themselves. So you are your true self. You don't need any explanation.
Right. And there are nuances in that. For example, when I first started my business, I was just doing straight image consulting, which is appearance, behavior, communication. And I was talking about expressing your true self. And I was finding, like, I had just gotten my training. I just learned some guidelines that were really good. And I was kind of chunky and funky. And I live in Vancouver, so it's very casual. And I was actually I was speaking, and a woman from the back yelled out, "Why would I want to take image advice from you? Look at what you're wearing." Really bad. And I laughed and I said, I don't want you to look like me. I want you to look like you. And I'm really good at that. But because my personal appearance didn't match what her idea of what an image consultant would look like, she just couldn't, like, there was a lot of cognitive dissonance. She couldn't reconcile that. And so I went along a little farther, being my chunky, funky self. And I got a little bit sloppy, frankly. And my business was stable. And I'm like, okay, I'd like to change that. And so I called my friend Michelle, who's a consultant in Ottawa, and she helped me out. And she said, oh, she goes, there's an element of elegant about you. And I was like, whatever. Like, because to me, elegant is like Grace Kelly, like very polite, very contained. And that's not at all who I am. And she said, no, you have a high level of attention to detail and you like things to be finished. Like you like the right thing at the right time. You like things to be tight. Like I love that. I love order. Like I love all that. And so I had to not allow my desire for comfort and to be really expressive to override the beauty of elegance and the power of elegance. So I changed my wardrobe because I did want to do more work in business. And I bought some suits, but I bought a bright pink suit and a bright blue suit. Like not wearing like a conservative nothing. And my business doubled that year, just from making that shift in my own appearance and tidying things up and starting to look a little bit more like what people would think an image consultant looked like. So it's still me, still feels great. Everything fits, still fits my personality. But I just turned the volume up a little bit on the edge, which has served me very well. And I admit I have teeth. So it makes sense to show them right off the top so that people aren't surprised.
Oh, I love that answer. It's also about choices you made and a combination. So to say to you talked about suits, or I love this pink color. Of course.
That's my coloring. Like it was a soft pink because I wear soft colors, but it was like, cigarette pants, ankles, silver shoes. It was fun.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I have another question for you. Of course. Can you give us a sneak peek into your upcoming book, Executive Being, and what readers can expect? And you said it's already out. Yes.
It is. Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's on all your popular platforms. You can order it there. So this is not a traditional business book in the way that you think of business books. Because as I was researching for this book, I realized that most of the books that are coming out now on executive presence are basically the same books that were being written 30 years ago. Same guidelines, same, speak low, speak slow, wear a suit. I don't know. It's the same kind of boring old guidelines. But what's happening now is finally in some of the research, executive presence people are starting to catch up to what I've been saying for the last 15 years, which is about this reality needs to be there for people. So in this book, I did it a little bit differently. So I also write poetry. So I've also published 2 memoirs in long stories and short poems. And when I was trying to write this book, I had a fancy coach that I was working with who was an old white guy, lovely man, but old white guy. And he's like, here's the format. You have to follow this format. And so I submitted the proposal and I followed the format, but it was like death to my artist's soul. So the way that I got into it finally was I went to my writing coach's house on Bowen Island. I laid on our couch for 5 days and wrote poetry about business. So each chapter starts with, there's poetry kind of interspersed without. So you'll see white space in this book that you don't usually see in business books. There's an invitation in this book to doodle, to open it up intuitively, to not read it front to back all the way, to read it out loud, to mess around, to use some colors, to pull what resonates, leave what doesn't. And the whole book is really about getting real. How do you get real? And so I've got 7 succinct practices for how to become more real, how to connect into this embodied self. I have 7 special appendices for my very experienced leaders that might be having trouble. And I highly recommend, if you're a very experienced leader, read those first. Otherwise, the book's going to drive you crazy because it is not a business book in that same way. It's intuitive. There's poetry. I talk about music. And I talk about how we can bring humanity back into the workplace, because it made sense for us to act like machines when we were in an industrialized world. Everything had to be in the same way, the same bolt in the same hole, in the same piece, the same. Now that we have AI and machines to do machine-like things, we don't need to do that. We get to lean hard into being human. We get to lean into the messiness of that. We get to lean into the connection of that. We get to lean into the warmth of that and bring that into our work. And so that's what my book is about. Get real, get human, get to work in a very lovely, warm, connected, effective way. We just don't need to mask anymore.
Thank you so much for sharing. And while you were talking, I had a I had an aha moment. Really, I have to share it now. Maybe you can tell me something. When you said AI was invented or we have AI now, we can use it, then I thought I had the thought like, what if it was invented or it is there in the world to show us the contrast? Because you talked about this. What is it being human and what is it not? And this is what you said about we have to go back to, yeah, I mean, this was great. Mhm. Thank you so much. I
That's
understood something.
I'm sorry, you're giving me chills. I'm like, oh, that's good. Yeah,
Yeah,
what if it was? What if it was?
it was really a good idea because all so what where does it come from? I use it, but very many people are refusing to use it, and then I thought, because I always say there must be something in it, it serves us, and what is it? Like, relax, you can be human again, you can, yeah, not hard work or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's this myth that working harder actually is more effective, but it isn't.
Mhm.
Because everything has a cycle. Everything natural has a cycle. Seasons have a cycle. We have cycles. Everything that grows has a cycle. And one of the pioneers in this work is a woman named Kate Northrup, who does beautiful work around this cyclical energy planning. And it's amazing stuff because we cannot be constantly in the spring. We cannot constantly be coming up with new ideas and constantly growing. And that it is not natural. And our world has conditioned us, our economic system has conditioned us produce, 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 produce. But nothing in nature does that. Machines can do that, but humans cannot. And we need those cycles of inspiration, of taking action, of being visible, and then resting. We have to have that. And I think that's a beautiful part of what we can bring back into the world too. And what I love about this work is that we're all a part of the transition team. Like, the world is waking up. So like, you're part of the transition team. I'm part of the transition team. Kate is part of the transition team. And I can relax because I don't have to do the work that you're doing. You're doing it. You don't have to do the work I'm doing. I'm doing it. Right? I don't have to do the work that any number of other amazing thinkers are doing, because we're all doing it together. We're all part of the team. And so if it feels a bit like heavy lifting sometimes, and feels like if you're a person who wants to be inspired and you're feeling a bit lonely, don't worry. The team exists. This is why everything is so tumultuous right now, because we're changing. So be inspired and be one of the people. Just remember you're on the team, and the little tiny bits of work you do today have a huge ripple effect. Even if you're just kind to someone in the coffee lineup, it has a tiny little measure of kindness, tiny little measure of connection. And that's where we want to go. How can we be more connected to one another and to ourselves and to the earth?
Wow, that was a great message. I would have asked you for your final thoughts. That means what I take away from what you just said is everyone is a leader, and also the moon has
Yeah,
cycles.
pay
Like,
attention to the cyclical world. Yeah.
thank you so much for our interview. Where can we find you when people want to reach out to you?
So I'm easy to find on LinkedIn and on Instagram, because Katherine Lazaruk is not a very common name. You can find me there. And if you want to connect with me, you can DM me there, or you can hit up our website, which is lzrkconsulting.com.
Oh, yes, I love this. I looked up your Instagram and there are these letters in your letter game. I love this. Also, the ABC you mentioned, appearance and behavior, and the second,
Communication.
the C, I forgot.
Communication.
Communication.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This is what we are doing. We communicate. Thank you so much. Maybe you have final thoughts before we close.
Oh, final thought. Let me think about that for a minute. I think the most important thing to remember is you're not alone. And if you want to do something different in the world, if you want to change the world, or if you just want to be calm and peaceful where you're at, I always say to people, go within to go without. Look inside to get outside. And have fun. Life's too short not to have fun.
This is the best message. Have fun.
Right?
Thank you so much for our interview. I'm inspired now and I have to re listen to this episode again because there were so many nuggets. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. It was a real pleasure to be here with you today.
And see you in the next episode.